And we also have, of course, a range of information both on our response activities and also the support that you can access on aem.org.nz website. So just moving now to a few updates for today. So this morning, the house at 33 Shore Road was demolished under supervision from the council. Work to stabilise the land behind the house will follow, and this has been a really difficult time for the family involved, and our thoughts are really with them as they feel their home. Once the rubble has been removed from that site, we will be putting in some containers to stabilise the bank, and that will hopefully enable access back to that road, and we're looking at that either tomorrow or earlier if possible. We do have around about 80 building inspectors out again on the ground today, revisiting some red placarded properties and just picking up any extras that have come to our attention. Just a reminder, if you have got a property that has been impacted by floodwaters and you haven't been visited by an inspector, please reach out to us so that we can organise for that to happen. And you can do that on our 0800 22 22 00 number. As of this morning, as I came down, the latest information was that we have 253 red stickered properties and 1,351 yellow. The priority at the moment, as I said, some of the priority work is actually revisiting some of those red placards and looking at whether they can be changed to yellow, given there is now some more certainty and stability in weather conditions. We probably won't see a big decrease in that red sticker number though, because there is still work happening to assess non-assessed properties, and that number has gone up since yesterday. With regard to transport and travel, the Auckland bus and ferry timetables are largely back to normal. Again, just a reminder, if you're using public transport, just check the journey planner on AT's website just to check what level of disruption there may be for you in your journey. You may still need to allow just a little bit of extra time for your trips. There are currently 27 roads closed around Auckland, some of those partially, some of those more permanently, and there are more information on those road closures again at Auckland Transport's website, including that Shore Road area that we've just talked about. If you do need to travel north, State Highway 1 to the Brendurwans is open one-way northbound, and this will be reversed on Monday to one-way southbound and back to one-way northbound from Tuesday. So that's just enabling some of the traffic movements in either direction, I guess, given the long weekend, so enabling movement up to the Waitangi celebrations. Heavy vehicles can use State Highway 12 and also State Highway 14, and the detour via Mangawhai is open. One of the things that we're doing now in terms of getting more information about the extent of the flood impacts on our land and waterways is doing additional aerial surveillance, and that's being done using drones. So our Healthy Waters team is using drones to survey stream blockages, so particularly for those stream areas that we can't easily get to on the ground. Drones do give us a really effective and fast way of getting some of that information in, and also some of the landslips, of course, across the region as well. So if you do see a drone up and it's in a vicinity of a stream or a slipped area, then it's likely to be part of that surveillance work. It is possible during that work that it will fly over, that those drones will fly over private property. Obviously, we need to sort of understand the extent of some of those issues across all land tenures. In the welfare space, we have 3 civil defence centres open at Randwick, Albany and Henderson. 12 people were accommodated overnight. So we've made really good progress in being able to find alternative accommodation for people who were displaced from the events on both Friday and Tuesday nights, and we're needing alternative accommodation. Again, that situation is a little bit fluid. I think I spoke about this yesterday. Sometimes we still have families in that we haven't seen for the first time. So we're just working again to make sure that we've got support for those families as they work through the situations in their properties. We also have 3 community support hubs. These are currently at Mangere, Moana Nui Pool and Leisure Centre. and that at the moment is open 24 hours. And we have the Newland Community Centre and the Birkenhead Leisure Centre. Low demand, we've closed the community hubs at the Fickling Centre and Te Manawa out at West. There is a lot of goodwill and generosity in the community, but we had some reports of scams and people posing as officials. So if you are being visited by someone in some official capacity, please make sure you check their identification. They should be able to identify with the organisation that they're purporting to represent. I also just wanted to touch on, and I have done this previously, but it probably was a couple of days ago, just the work that we're doing to support animal welfare as well. So we know that during times like this, if people have to leave their homes, often one of the barriers to them doing that is separation from their pets. So we've got the option of people having access to our animal shelters if they need temporary accommodation for their pets. We can work with them for additional or alternative arrangements if that's not something that's going to work for them. We don't want registration and microchipping to be a barrier for people who have been affected by the floods coming into temporary accommodation or getting the help that they need. So we are offering free microchipping and also registration at our shelters for anyone that's in that situation. We've also been working with MPI and SPCA to provide alternative solutions for the range, I guess, of animals that can be impacted by this event. And the shelters that we're working with, the Auckland Council shelters in Henderson, Wirral, and also the SPCA shelter at Mangere, are all supporting this response. We have opened up the Auckland Emergency Relief Fund, and since it was set up, we've had over 300 applications. Currently, $1.3 million in the fund is being contributed by Auckland Council, government, general public and corporations, including ANZ. The aim is to start making payments from this Tuesday, and more information around that relief fund can be found on aem.org.nz. So this is available to people who've been impacted by this flood event, where they can sort of get immediate assistance with a range of different things. There is also the option for additional welfare assistance through the Ministry of Social Development, and they can be reached 0800 400 100. We know that with more settled weather, we'll be out there doing a bit more waste cleaning over the weekend. So again, just a reminder to take care as you remove flood-damaged material from your homes. As the days pass, these can be more of a health risk to you and your family. And, you know, one of the things to look out for is if you have work at your property back into a state of livability, just making sure that it is dry enough, because we know that mould, for example, can become an issue. So those are the sorts of things that we need to have a look out for. And a reminder again that there are 15 participating waste transfer facilities where people are able to access free drop-off of waste related waste, flood-affected waste, if you are not able to do that through your insurance company or other means. And the last thing to cover is that we're asking residents in the Titirangi area to reduce their water use. Our flood-affected water supply services keep up with demand. We understand that there are no other major water supply, wastewater or power supply issues at this time that are not already being responded to. And that is the end of this afternoon's briefing or information that I have to share with you. Thank you. Happy to take any questions if you've got them.
I know there's a lot of obviously concern about water table.
Yes. Yeah.
Has there been any thought given to bring the treatment plant out there to relieve some of that pressure?
We have, of course, looked at this issue, and we had Ross Roberts, our Head of Engineering Resilience, talking about just that natural occurrence of some of those springs bubbling up from the ground as a result of higher than usual groundwater levels. The advice that we've received at this time is that whilst it will take time to get back to sort of normal groundwater levels, the peak levels which are causing some of these springs should subside reasonably quickly.
I realise we're sort of still in the space in many ways, but a lot of chat out there as well about overloaded services, obviously, and infill is a word that comes up a lot. Are these sorts of issues on the radar? Are you having?
These are the types of things in terms of just future resilience for Auckland, which will be considered in different ways. So, right now, as you said, we're very focused on our response. There is a formal transition into a recovery process, which includes a formalised recovery structure, and through that we would expect a range of things to be looked at, including what needs to be done to make sure that Auckland is as resilient as it can be as we move into the future. We also do that as part of our business as usual work as well.
Do you have a sense yet of, I imagine this will be part of your investigations, but for want of a better term, where the choke points in the system really are?
Well, it's probably a question better put to an expert in some of those infrastructure systems, but as you heard yesterday, we had both, Ross talking about some of the natural spring events. We had Nick Vigar and the Waters team just talking about the role that natural floodplains and piped infrastructure play in some of the conveyance of water. I guess the message of that is that, sort of a summary in a way, is that there are lots of different solutions, but not all solutions are going to work for every single event. We can't safeguard or proof, we can't deal with every possible event given the infrastructure that currently exists.
You mentioned scams involving people posing as officials, I think you said. What are the nature of those scams exactly?
I don't have the absolute information. We've just had some reports have come in where people have been concerned about people perhaps going to scope out properties and things like that, wearing sort of some level of official badge or attire that may not be legitimate. So just a reminder that if you are interacting with people coming to in the vein of insurance or assessing a property for damage, just to check that they actually have the right identification for the work that they're proposing that they're going to do.
Has this involved people requesting payment or people giving payment?
I'm not aware of.
How to your attention, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the specific details, but that is one of the things that's a possibility. Equally, just scoping properties, those sorts of things.
How many reports?
I haven't got that detail in front of me, sorry.
Over a week since this weather event started, do you have a gauge on how bad the damage is around Auckland, and a gauge of how long this recovery may take?
Well, one of the I guess indicators of the extent of the damage is the areas where we are picking up those flood affected properties. So I mentioned the 234 red stickered properties and the 1,317 yellow stickered properties, which are spread across a very wide geography. So our initial assessments were about 25 suburbs being impacted, but it's now much higher than that. Really, it's we've got both and slip related damage across the vast extent of Auckland. So it is a significant event in that regard. In terms of recovery, some things will bounce back very quickly. There are aspects of work that we can get on with and repair in the very short term, but some of the things we'll need to do, and thinking of impacts on property, that will take many, many months, if not into a year and beyond.
And from what you're hearing from people, is there still a high level of anxiety, apprehension? What the gauge and the feeling that you're getting from the community around Auckland, what is that?
I think it's reasonable to expect that people will certainly be feeling heightened levels of anxiety and emotional distress. This event has touched people in many different ways, and it's caused loss of life. It's caused people to lose their belongings and homes. For many others, it will just be an additional uncertainty on top of some a period of time where we've been working through a range of different challenges. So I think it's reasonable to expect that there will be heightened emotions. Just the one thing is just to really be mindful of that when interacting with people and interacting with service providers. We've got lots of people out there on the ground, and many staff are working hard to try and resolve some of the issues that communities are experiencing, and some of the people too have been affected by flood events, the flood events. So lots of people impacted in different ways.
In the coming days, how many more, do you anticipate a lot more houses being red stickered, yellow stickered? I mean, is it going up significantly higher than you expected? I mean, what are you expecting in the coming week?
Well, we're getting very close to being near the end of the survey process for houses that we've been able to identify as having had some level of flood damage. We still expect that there will be houses that need inspection over the next couple of weeks, but the bulk of that work, the big tranche of that work will be finished by the end of this week. So by the end of Sunday, we hope to have got through the majority of homes. We do expect there will continue to be some emerging issues or some properties. For example, people might have been away and then they'll be coming back home and realising that their house has been impacted, and then they might get in touch with us and need to do that assessment. So there will still be a bit of a tail on this, but the bulk of it will be done by the end of this week.
And just finally from me, from what you know from emergency services, how are they? Are they feeling the stress of it still? Is it still at its peak? I mean, how are they doing?
Well, the good news is that the emergency service response has been, they've done an incredible job. We're incredibly grateful, and we have a fantastic range of both professional and volunteer emergency response personnel out there to Miki Makoto. Certainly there was a huge volume of work on Friday and Saturday, so again on Tuesday and Wednesday as we had that further band of bad weather come through. But all reports have been that the system has held up really well, and that at this point in time, most of those services, well, pretty much all of those services, Fire Emergency New Zealand, St John's, New Zealand Police, are now working at almost business as usual levels.
The Mayor has told us this morning that the members of the staff were on civil defence or emergency management's email lists ahead of the flooding on Friday and the flooding on Friday. So they weren't getting critical updates from us. How did that happen?
Well, firstly, I missed that. I joined the response on Saturday morning, so I wasn't directly involved with the communication flow on Friday evening, so I can't speak specifically to that. What I can say is that we have a duty service that is monitoring for emergency events 24/7, 365 days of the year. And we have a range of operating procedure communication channels that we use to escalate different types of information about events as they begin to escalate. And email is one of the tools that we use, but particularly in a quickly moving and escalating event, we also use other forms of communication. Obviously phone calls and face-to-face are an important part of that. Email is just one of the tools used for communication situations.
Do you have any safety concerns for the properties that are directly beside that property that's been demolished on Shaw Road?
So when our building inspections team went out to assess that particular property, what they did find was that there were a number of other properties in that vicinity that also were unsafe. So they have been through that process, and with some of those both red and yellow stickered.
How confident are you that there aren't people laying dead or injured in their homes because they haven't had friends and family to check up?
Well, that's a very tricky. We're confident that we've got the support services stood up for people to access if they need help. In any both non-response and response time, we will work as quickly as we can to reports that we receive of people needing assistance. One of the things that we're going to be working on over this coming week as we move out of the immediate response phase of the operation is doing more of that, getting out on the ground and interacting with affected areas to just gauge what support they do. A really important message there, I think, just generally about this is both response time and outside of response is keeping an eye on your neighbours, looking out for people that you know are vulnerable. If you haven't seen someone for a while, checking in on them. All of those things are things that we can do together as a community to look at each other. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. The voice did hold up, which is good.